Impact Live. This is when we dive into the tropics a little bit more because, 3 minutes during our normal newscast just doesn't cover it when we're talking about tropics, especially when we're talking about a system like Melissa. So let's get into it. It's 8 p.m. so the latest stats just came out. Winds are still at 50 miles per hour for Melissa, still a tropical storm. Once those winds reach 75 miles per hour, which we're expecting this weekend, it will strengthen to a hurricane. Now, this is interesting. The pressure actually went up. We look for a drop in pressure when we're looking for a system that's strengthening. So this is showing how Melissa remains pretty disorganized. It is encountering some shear to the west. That's why you see that convection to the east here. Let me get my little pointer. So here's all the convection. On the western side, you don't see as much convection. That's because we have some shear that's basically blowing in this way and blowing the convection off to the east. Also, notice that Melissa has slowed down. If you thought it couldn't get any slower, well, it did. It is now moving west at 1 mile per hour. So yes, it is now at a snail's pace, or a turtle. Actually, a turtle is probably faster than that. So it was moving west-northwest at 2 miles per hour earlier with the 5 p.m. advisory. All right, let's look at the cone. This has been updated. You're not going to see any major change here, perhaps a little bit of a slowdown for the track. You see it wants to head north to the northwest. That is a change that we've been seeing in the last couple of model runs here. Jamaica has that yellow border around it because they are under a tropical storm watch, while southern Haiti, Hispanola, is highlighted as that hurricane watch, which we'll look over in just a second. But I have this as a pause here because as we move into Saturday, we are expecting this to strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane with those 80-mile-per-hour winds. Likely by Saturday afternoon, we'll see that happening. Again, here's the next 24 hours. It's going to meander in the Caribbean, and then it will make that gentle turn to the north-northwest. By Sunday, it could be a Category 3 hurricane, which would make it a major hurricane. And moving forward into Monday, could even strengthen to a Category 4. Now, if it did strengthen to a Category 4, that would be our 4th out of 5 hurricanes we've had so far this season. 4 out of 5 of them, if this happens, to turn into a Category 4 hurricane. So we'll see if that happens. That only happened a couple times in history. Not too much of a crazy status there, but if anybody wants a fun tidbit, there you go. So let's look at the spaghetti models here and play this out. And again, I'm just watching some of this with you guys because this was just, it takes a while for our computer program to update here when these models come in. But you can see, let's do a nice zoom in. You can see the general consensus is this will head out to the west, and then it will eventually make that turn toward the northeast. Hey, Sam, if you could talk to me just for a second. I don't know if my IFB went out or not. It's I can't hear anything, so even though it's just me talking, but yeah, I can. It's very, very low though, so not hearing much. But I will continue going on, so sorry about that, everybody watching at home. Sometimes our earpieces give us a little bit of trouble. Okay, so looking at the spaghetti model, so these are model runs, several different models that you're looking at. The general idea here is that yes, it will move, kind of meander in the Caribbean. Here's Jamaica. We see Hispaniola. It will eventually look like it will go out to the west, but then after that, it wants to make that curve toward the northeast. So certainly a very interesting track. There are a couple outliers that you see there that bring it a little bit closer to Cuba, while some of the outliers bring it closer to Haiti, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico seems to be in the clear. I know earlier we were looking at the possibility, again, some outliers trying to bring it closer to Puerto Rico, but with this latest update, just not seeing that. So again, the areas really to pay attention to if you have any interest in the Bahamas, well, eventually the Bahamas. I should start off with what's closest, right? Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, Cayman Islands, which are very hard to see there, but it's up to the northwest of where Jamaica is. It's a tiny little dot. Let me see if I can zoom in. It won't let me zoom in here. And then eventually, yes, the Bahamas. So Anybody that has plans, vacation plans to go down that way, I would just be aware that this is the latest of what we're seeing. Sorry if it seems like I keep pausing here. I'm just trying to get my sound fixed. All right, I'm going to move on to water temperatures, because the setup for this is very favorable for development when you look at water temperature alone. Currently, we have water temperatures that are in the 80s, and that will allow for the system to intensify and to strengthen with that warm bath water. This is basically an environment that is very favorable for conditions to continue for the system to strengthen. There we go. I got my sound back. All right, so 86 is the general number that you're seeing in the Caribbean, where you get a little bit closer to the Gulf and we have temperatures that are cooler, closer to the 80-degree mark. But hey, guess what? Long as it's 80 degrees or warmer, it's fair game. These systems love that water that's 80 degrees or warmer. Looking at the ensemble model, so now this is a little bit different. It's still spaghetti models that you're looking at here, but instead of multiple models, we have just two. The Euro and the GFS. And you're probably saying, well, Colleen, I see a lot more than two on your screen. Well, yes, because the actual model is the Euro in the white and the GFS in the yellow. But what you're getting here are multiple runs of that model. So they took the GFS, put a couple different scenarios in there, ran it, different things that could happen, different tracks, and kind of comes up with a general idea. Same with the European in the white. It's all the European. It's just different models, different outcomes, different possibilities that these models are reading into. But again, the general idea is that this system will continue to just linger, going close to the National Hurricane Center. That's why the National Hurricane Center is so good at what they do. And over the years, the tracks have been more and more accurate because of models like this. And so they take this into consideration and they say, okay, well, most of the models, you see it all clustered there, running south of Jamaica, taking that slight turn to the north and then to the west, and then eventually after that it will turn to the northeast, and that's where things really start to spread out. That's where you see the models not so clustered together once you get into the open Atlantic. All right, so here's another way to look at it. We have the GFS and the Euro, the GFS being in the yellow, the Euro being in the green, and we're in a pretty good agreement, right? Everything's all gravy. Here we go into the next 24 hours. This is tomorrow at 9 p.m., so almost 24 hours from now. And you can see the GFS here in the yellow and the Euro in the green, starting to separate. Let's go a little further in time. Yeah, and again, starting to see slight separation. The models are starting to disagree here, but still close enough where you can say, okay, well, it's the same general area, right? But watch how different it gets. So now you're starting to see, this is Sunday at 10 a.m. This is showing the GFS, which the GFS has been running on this idea since the beginning, really, bringing it out to the northeast sooner, towards the Bahamas sooner, and a little bit closer in an approach to Puerto Rico. We were mentioning that during the 5 o'clock show. Do I think that's going to happen? I'm siding with the European, to be honest with you. And so is the Google AI models as well. But the European, you can see, wants to bring it more so on the track that the National Hurricane Center is also going with, and that's slightly out to the west. So moving south of Cuba, south of Jamaica, and moving out to the west that way. So let's go a little bit further in time. Now you're really seeing the split, right? This is Monday, 11 o'clock, world of difference. The GFS still wants to bring this out to the northeast, past the Bahamas and out into Atlantic a lot earlier than the European. The Europeans say, nah, not buying it. I'm going to have this kind of move over towards San Salvador within the next 4 or 5 days. So let's go a little bit more. There it goes. The GFS, what's happening here is the GFS is picking up on that trough that's digging into our area and allowing Melissa to hitch a ride with that first trough that's coming through. The European is saying, I'm going to hold off and I'm going to hitch a ride with the next trough that wants to dig into our area. Now, what you need to know for us here in Florida and the Gulf Coast, this includes all the Gulf Coast states, is that we continue to see these fronts that drop into our area, these troughs, and it's giving us a beautiful dry weather right now. But what it's also doing is it's working as a force field, as a shield, and it's blocking these systems with that wind shear, with the cooler air, and really steering it away from us. So this Melissa is a system that if you have interest in the Cayman Islands, in Jamaica, in Cuba, in Hispaniola, and eventually the Bahamas, that's the place you really need to pay attention to for this forecast. GFS brings it out to sea, out to the Atlantic a little bit sooner. Euro has it really hanging out in these areas, and the longer that it hangs out in this location, the more rain it will dump on top of this area, and the more that it can lead to some flooding. So that's something to consider as well. All right, let's go into the GFS now. I believe we just have, okay, we're going to go to a break, and then when we come back, we'll go into the winds for the GFS.
Before hurricane season hits, it's time to prep your home. Familiarize yourself with where your water shutoff valve is located. If backflow prevention devices are installed, get them tested annually.
Those are some great tips, and Cool Today is here to help you weather the storm. For over 60 years, we've been here to help Floridians with their cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs. We can help you prepare, protect, and repair your home. Call 888-40-TODAY.
I was driving when a Ford pickup truck barreled into me from behind, sending me to the hospital.
I knew my husband was going to need an excellent attorney, so I called Dan Newland.
I'm so glad my wife called Dan. Dan really fought for me. He won my case and got me $650,000.
If you've been involved in a car accident, allow me to fight for you. Call me now at 813-888-8000.
Thanks, Dan, for winning my husband's case.
This autumn, give your home the upgrade it deserves. Save up to 20% during California Closet's Autumn Upgrade event, making it easier than ever to transform your space with our select finishes. Whether it's a walk-in closet, home office, pantry, or garage, our designs are about more than organization. They're about creating space for what belongs. We call it practical magic, expert design that feels effortless. Visit one of our 3 Tampa Bay showrooms or schedule your complimentary consultation today at CaliforniaClosetsTampaBay.com.
Windows are created and installed with different levels of quality. You need quality that can withstand the tropical climate. Our installers only install PGT custom windows and doors, so we are the go-to experts. Don't take my word for it. We have been named Best of Tampa Bay 3 years in a row, Reader's Choice in Sarasota 3 years in a row, and nationally recognized as Window and Door Dealer of the Year. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Give WeatherTight Windows a call today, and don't forget the cookies.
All right, welcome back. So before we left, we're basically going over the track of Melissa, Tropical Storm Melissa. Now we're going to kind of dive into the individual models a little bit more. And remember, there's multiple runs of these models. Basically, every run that comes out, there's little varying changes. The GFS wants to bring Melissa out into the Atlantic sooner than the European. The European eventually does get us there, but it has Melissa hanging out in the Caribbean much longer by a couple days compared to the GFS. So what we're starting off with is the GFS, the American model, and what you're looking at here would be the winds associated with Melissa. Now currently, the winds extend from center, tropical storm force winds I should say, which is greater than 30 miles per hour, upwards of 40 miles per hour. Tropical storm force winds extend about 115 miles out from the center of where Melissa is currently located. So keep that in mind as we move forward in time. The strongest winds looks to approach, at least with the GFS, I mean, areas, the winds will pick up speed all the way from Florida down to the Bahamas. Not so much Cuba, but especially Haiti, southern Haiti, and we'll just say southern Hispaniola, and on the northern side as well. And that's because the GFS does bring this system, Melissa, a little bit closer to Hispaniola and earlier than the European does. Here we go a little bit further in time, and that's when the center is trying to move over with this particular run, with this particular model. Move over Hispaniola. You can see the strongest winds to the north there. And a little bit further out in time, now we're entering into the 29th and that's when the GFS brings it out into sea. So Wednesday, October 29th, the GFS says, okay, we're just going to make a run out into the Atlantic. Let's go into wind shear, because wind shear is one of the reasons why we have seen Melissa be a little bit disorganized lately, right? So right now we have this trough that's digging into our area, and that's really preventing any tropical development at this time. Let me just put a pause here so I can show you guys what I mean. So what you're looking for here would be these darker blues. That's where we have the winds. They're increasing speed, and see how it takes a nice little dip here? Whoop. Those are those upper level winds. So wind shear is just basically change of wind direction with heights and wind speed as well. And what you're seeing here is that dip in that upper level wind, the jet, that's diving in, and those winds are pretty speedy, and that's something that these tropical systems do not like. Now down here, much calmer winds, and that's what that's what the European is buying into, and that's why most of, including the National Hurricane Center track, says that Melissa will get stronger. But getting back into the GFS, so moving forward into now Thursday, this is again, paused right here. This is Sunday, so we were just looking at tomorrow, Thursday. Sunday, October 26th, this upcoming weekend. Again, the GFS, this is the shear that we're looking at. We're not looking at the winds associated with Melissa. We're looking at the winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere that could tear the system apart. So the GFS has it running into the Atlantic, where it's showing more shear out that way, but it still keeps it strong enough that it will, maintain its status, just kind of being picked up by this trough and taking out to sea. So the GFS, that's why it's showing a speedier delivery out into the open Atlantic there. All right, again, here's another way to look at the model. This is, again, one run of the GFS model, the latest run. This is the system that's producing heavy rain across Hispanola. And there it goes. It wants to go out into the Atlantic come next week, as we are just a few days ahead of Halloween. Now let's look at the European, because the European is aligning a little bit more with, or I should say the National Hurricane Center and the AI models are aligning a little bit closer to the European. So again, this is still one run, so things can change, but we're seeing the strongest winds just south of Hispanola, highlighted in the red there, the center. Again, this is looking basically in current time. Going forward now into this weekend, Friday, 2 days from now, 11 p.m. Has it, the center of this, just south of Jamaica, strongest winds to the southwest of Jamaica. Yeah, you're still getting some winds closer to the Gulf Coast. Again, no major impacts here. It'll just give us some choppier water, rip currents, etc. But as far as tropical impacts, the Euro has Jamaica having the larger impacts, whereas the GFS really favoring Hispanola, and especially Haiti, having the major impacts. So again, completely opposite here, where here we are Monday, October 27th. By this point in time, the GFS would be bringing this past the Bahamas. Meanwhile, the European is bringing this more in a westward direction and keeps those winds pretty strong there. Look at that. Jamaica just getting hammered with those stronger winds, and the Cayman Islands as well. You see those little dots that are inside those circles? Here, let me see if I can, over here. That would be the Cayman Islands. So again, anybody with cruising plans or, going down to Jamaica, Cayman Islands, probably not going to go if this system verifies. And then finally, here we are just before Halloween, October 30th, day before. That's when the European finally brings it into the Bahamas. So they will get it too. It's just a matter of timing. All right, now we're looking at the rain. The heaviest of rain, again, looks to be impacting Jamaica, southern Haiti, and even southern Cuba will have some of that heavier rain. Oops, went too far ahead. And then takes that turn and then eventually brings some heavier rain to the Bahamas just ahead of Halloween. Notice how that front is diving in and keeping the system away from Florida. So that's something that we like to see here locally. And finally, the wind shear forecast. This is again the European, showing how the winds are acting as our little saving grace to the north. Look at all of that wind shear that's just laid on top of our state. This is this weekend, Saturday. Now we're moving into Sunday. The winds are starting to get a little bit lighter aloft, and notice down in the Caribbean, that's the window where the European says, okay, the winds are lighter. This is when this thing's going to strengthen and move out to the west. But that shear stays on top of us, my friends. Look at that. And then we have that other front that's diving in just ahead of Halloween, which will, by the way, leave us with a pretty nice Halloween here. Cooler, drier, not as humid. And that also keeps the tropics away. So that shear is working in our favor for here in Florida. This is not a Florida system. This is a system that's going to impact the Caribbean. All right, we're going to go to the break, and after that, we will talk a little bit about some rain, and then we'll talk some local weather.
I was involved in a very bad car accident. Called attorney Dan Newland, and it was like 1, 2, 3. Dan really got it done for me. At the end of my case, he got me $525,000.
As one of the largest personal injury law firms in the United States, my team and I remain committed more than ever to win big on your case. Involved in a car accident? Let's get started. Call me at 813-888-8000.
Thank you, Dan, for winning my case.
This autumn, give your home the upgrade it deserves. Save up to 20% during California Closet's Autumn Upgrade event, making it easier than ever to transform your space with our select finishes. Whether it's a walk-in closet, home office, pantry, or garage, our designs are about more than organization. They're about creating space for what belongs. We call it practical magic, expert design that feels effortless. Visit one of our 3 Tampa Bay showrooms or schedule your complimentary consultation today at CaliforniaClosetsTampaBay.com.
Windows are created and installed with different levels of quality. You need quality that can withstand the tropical climate. Our installers only install PGT custom windows and doors, so we are the go-to experts. Don't take my word for it. We have been named Best of Tampa Bay 3 years in a row, Reader's Choice in Sarasota 3 years in a row, and nationally recognized as Window and Door Dealer of the Year. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Give WeatherTight Windows a call today, and don't forget the cookies.
With a fresh new look and over 60 years of keeping Floridians comfortable, Cool Today is the name to trust for fast same-day service. Cooling, plumbing, and electrical. Our friendly expert technicians take the hassle out of home repair today. And Cool Today is here for you tomorrow, too. That's why we're introducing a parts and labor warranty on select AC systems for a lifetime. For cooling, plumbing, or electrical service, get the best from today and for years to come. Cool Today.
All right, welcome back. So before we left, we were basically breaking down the differences in the GFS and the European models, which the differences are pretty large, especially not so much to track, but the timing of things. Now we're going to talk about rainfall, and I just brought up the European with this because, again, the National Hurricane Center, their cone aligns closer with the European. The Google AI models aligns closer to the European. My personal opinion aligns closer to the European. Either way, they are still going to, even if the GFS track did verify, they're still going to get a lot of rain in Jamaica, Hispanola, the Bahamas eventually. But the European, the problem with this is it lingers in that area longer, and most of the tracks verifies that. So that's why I'm looking at just the European for the rainfall. We could get, or it's not us, but Jamaica, our friends in Jamaica, could get 15 to 20 inches of rain. And here's the other problem. Jamaica, if anybody's ever visited there, has mountains, right? And when you talk about orographic lifting, that's basically when the moisture rises up the mountain and it can really produce more rain. I'm just using my arrow. Of course, mountains aren't extending all the way into Cuba, but you get the picture. And that could add to more rain on at least one side of the mountain, right? Now, either way, they're getting hammered with all that rain because this is a tropical system and these are steam engines and they work off that warm body of water. So there's plenty of moisture to work with, right? It looks like Jamaica, with at least the European track, is just in the non-favorable zone. This can lead to some catastrophic flooding. Another thing to consider with those mountains is that mudslides easily form. We see this in California all the time, right? When that rain basically acts as a water slide, right? It dumps all of that extra moisture on these mountain ranges and it just makes a messy, slippery, mudslide, and that can be catastrophic as well. So this is something that's really going to be a danger for those in Jamaica. Just the rainfall alone and the flooding that they will receive out of this, not looking good. Also notice that that heavier rain does extend into southern Cuba. You see the white and the pink there, and the southern portion of Hispaniola, especially as you look at Haiti. So Jamaica's not the only one here. I'm just saying that they are the ones closest in the line of fire, if you will, or the line of rainfall, I should say. So, you know, that's not looking good for our friends down there. It's certainly going to be a very dangerous situation with that. Back here home locally. So again, we have the series of fronts that are moving through, acting as our savior, basically pushing any moisture away. We have too much dry air in place. Actually, we could use more rain than what we're receiving. We have a front moving through today. Here it comes. Dry air settles in behind that, high pressure. Then we have this cutoff low that's moving over from Texas. It's currently on top of Texas right now. Sweeps in this weekend. Now, at the same time, while everything's going on in the Caribbean, we have a southeast wind that will be setting up, right? You see the winds kind of driving into Miami there, pulling in all that moisture while that upper level low passes to the north of us. So that will spin up just enough moisture for